Hey guys, so it's been a really crazy first couple of months here and I haven't had a huge amount of time to record, but welcome back to my channel, and this is the first video I'm posting in a little while. So yeah, let's get into it. So, a week or so before I left my exchange, I received a couple of messages from some people regarding some questions they had about the program and about youth exchange after seeing my first video. So I'm going to answer some of those questions in this video. This is the first kind of Q&A video I'm doing. If you have any other questions, feel free to send them through to me on Instagram or down in the comments below anywhere, and I'll address them in a later video. But for now, let's get into this one. So the first question is, what is your biggest fear going into the exchange program? So going into the exchange program, I think my biggest fear, and this actually links to a later question as well, is while I'm overseas here, all of my friends back home are going to be going through so many different things with university and jobs, and they're going to be changing so much, as will I. So it's a bit of a scary thing being separated from them for a year and then figuring out how I fit back into their lives when I come home, with those same friends and in my group and that kind of thing. A lot of people make new friends and new groups will form, and so it's a bit scary going away for a year and then not really being sure where you're going to fit in when you come back. So I think that's probably was the biggest fear when I first was deciding to come on exchange. And yeah. So question number 2, why did you pick Germany? So I don't know if I explained this in the last video, but the way it works with Rotary Youth Exchange is you don't pick a country, you get to submit 5 preferences, and then they assign you a country basically. They try and do their best to give everyone one of their top preferences. So Germany was actually my second preference, Switzerland was number 1. However, in the end, by the time we got given our countries, I was actually more happy to receive Germany than Switzerland. And why did I pick Germany in specifically? I think I was honestly pretty happy with anywhere in Europe. I've never been to Europe before personally. I've been to America and Asia and other places, but never Europe. So I was really happy to come pretty much anywhere in Europe and experience that. It's such a different culture to the other ones I've seen before. We actually hosted a German exchange student in my house, maybe 10 years ago now, for 9 months, so I guess I have a bit of connection there, and one of my very good friends from Australia moved to Germany a couple of years ago, so I knew a few people here, and the culture appealed to me. It seemed like it was one that I'd really like to get to know. I've heard the language is difficult, and having been here for 2 months I can tell you it is difficult, but yeah, Germany was really an exciting opportunity. It seemed like a cool country for me to be able to experience the culture of. For the third question was, what will I do all year? So on youth exchange, you do have to go to school. It's a school-based exchange. Your visa is a student visa, which means you have to go to school, and if you don't go to school, you will get deported. Your visa will be cancelled. So first and foremost, you have to go to school, and school's great because it's really hard to follow the classes. It's something I've experienced, which I'll talk more about in my next video detailing my exchange so far. But it's a really good opportunity to meet people, make friends, and it's a really great place to immerse yourself into a new culture, which you wouldn't get if you were just here for a holiday or to work. There are, of course, other things you do other than school. You can play sports. There's Rotary organised trips that you do, or for all organisations, there's generally trips that you do with other exchange students, so whether that be around Europe or around your country, or a quick trip to another country, these kind of things. So you're always doing things with other exchange students as well. You can catch up during the weekends, and sometimes your host families might take you to see things in the surrounding area, or even take you on holidays with them if you're lucky enough. So yeah, there's plenty of things you get to do during the year, and in the end though, the exchange is it's not a holiday, it's more of a living experience. Like, you really are there to live a normal life. Like, you go to school, you go to parties, you make friends. It's not just tourism and doing nothing the whole year. It's more becoming a part of the family and having a life that you would live if you were actually living here for your whole life. So it's kind of cool in that sense that it's different to all other holidays I've had before, because I'm not just here to see things and do things. Like, I'm here to really live, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's one of the really cool things I've had so far. The fourth question is, and this links into the first one, am I worried about making new friends and leaving old friends behind? So making new friends, the only worry I had really was the language barrier. So because I speak English and most people here speak German, obviously, I was a bit worried that there would be issues making friends with people because the language is so different. However, I haven't actually experienced that. Everyone speaks pretty good English and is pretty happy to talk to me, and it's been really, like, I've made some really good friends here, which I'm happy for. And gone to some parties and experienced carnival, and yeah, so it's been a lot easier than I expected to communicate with people effectively and make good friends here. So that's been a really nice, pleasing thing to see. In terms of leaving my old friends behind, definitely something I'm worried about and still worried about now. As I said in the first point, it's probably one of the things that scares me most about exchange, trying to go home afterwards to all my friends and see how I fit into their lives still, where so much has changed. So that's definitely, I guess, a bit of a fear I have. But yeah, I'm not too worried. Like I feel like my friends at home are really good friends, and I don't think they're just gonna never talk to me when I get home. It's just gonna be interesting to integrate back into that part of my life and see how that goes. For the fifth question, did I cut off any romantic relationships because of exchange, or am I going to try long distance? So short answer, no. I didn't have any relationships when I left. I had a relationship about 9 months before I left, and then when that ended, I basically said I'm not going to date until I leave because it's too complicated to leave when you're in a relationship. My advice, if I could give one, is don't go on exchange long distance. It's really, it would be, I'm guessing, very, very hard to maintain that relationship and give your attention to that person, because from my experience, the exchange so far has been so busy. I haven't actually had that much time to connect with my old friends and people at home because I'm doing so much stuff here. So it's going to be, if you want to do it, then feel free and respect if you can. But I feel like long distance would be a really difficult decision and a really difficult thing to do on exchange, just because of how much you're doing here and how many new people you're meeting here as well. But no romantic relationships for me back home. Sixth question was, can your parents come and visit you? Now, this really varies district to district, so it really depends on which countries you go to and which parts of which countries you go to. So different areas will have different rules. Some areas will go, yeah, sure, come visit your child for a week. Others will go, no, not at all. I think the best way is just to, when you find out where you're going and you find out who the people in charge in your area are, just send them an email and say, hey, what are your rules regarding parental visits, and even get your parents to get in contact with them. And my number one thing is make sure your parents always ask before booking flights and stuff, because if your parents don't ask, they book flights and then the district says, sorry, you can't see your child, then they've got a whole bunch of flights that they can no longer use to see you. So always check before you book things. Because it really does vary district to district. So I know my parents are going to be hopefully coming later this year to visit, so I'm lucky that my district is fairly understanding of that. But yeah, it really depends, so make sure you check before any of that kind of stuff is planned. 7. This is the last question for today, is if you feel really uncomfortable while you're in exchange, are you allowed to come home? So short answer, yes. You can come home whenever you want. They're not going to tell you, no, you must stay. Like if you're, one of the biggest causes of discomfort would be homesickness for sure. I've heard a lot of stories about people who've been really homesick on exchange. There can be issues integrating into the culture, making friends. If you don't make friends, it can be really hard to enjoy your exchange. It can be issues such as sickness or a family member illness or death. So there's lots of reasons you could feel uncomfortable and need to go home. And in that case, from my experience, at least with my organisation, which is Rotary, they're generally very understanding and they're okay for you to go home if you really need to. They don't recommend it. They don't want you to go home. They want you to enjoy the exchange and get the best out of it. But if you really are uncomfortable, they're not going to force you to stay. And that's what I've experienced so far. But I'm also lucky enough that I really haven't wanted to go home yet. Like, I've loved my time here. I've made good friends. I've had good times. Obviously there's been challenges as well, but nothing that's made me go, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home. Like, I haven't felt that, which has been really good. So that's the end of the first lot of questions. Thank you very much for the guy who sent me those. It was a cool idea for a video, and I hope that helped somehow for when you want to go on exchange, or if you go on exchange. And if anyone else has any other questions that I didn't cover today, please drop them in the comments or send me an Instagram message, and I'll do another video in the future with more Q&A questions. So anyway, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll be back soon with the video recapping my first 2 months in Germany. See ya.